Illyria, northwestern part of the Balkan Peninsula, inhabited from about the 10th century BCE onward by the Illyrians, an Indo-European people. At the height of their power, the Illyrian frontiers extended from the Danube River southward to the Adriatic Sea, and from there eastward to the Šar Mountains. The Illyrians, bearers of the Hallstatt culture, were divided into tribes, each a self-governing community with a council of elders and a chosen leader. A strong tribal chieftain, however, could unite several tribes into a kingdom. The last and best-known Illyrian kingdom had its capital at Shkodra, modern Shkodër, Albania. One of its most important rulers was King Agron, second half of the 3rd century BCE, who, in alliance with Demetrius II of Macedonia, defeated the Aetolians, 231. Agron, however, died suddenly, and during the minority of his son, his widow, Teuta, acted as regent. Queen Teuta attacked Sicily and the coastal Greek colonies with part of the Illyrian navy. Simultaneously, she antagonized Rome, which finally sent a large fleet to the eastern shores of the Adriatic. Although Teuta submitted in 228, the Illyrian kingdom of the interior was not destroyed, and a second naval expedition was sent against Illyria in 219. Philip V of Macedonia aided his Illyrian neighbors, and thus started a protracted war that ended with the conquest of the whole Balkan Peninsula by the Romans. The last Illyrian king, Genthius, surrendered in 168 BC. The Roman province of Illyricum stretched from the Drylin River, the Drin in modern Albania, in the south to Istria, modern Slovenia and Croatia, in the north, and to the Sava River in the east. Its administrative center was Salonai, near present-day Split, in Dalmatia. With the extension of the Roman Empire along the Danube River valley, Illyricum was divided between the provinces of Dalmatia and Pannonia. Under the empire, Illyria enjoyed a high degree of prosperity. It was traversed by a Roman road, and Illyria's ports served as important trade and transit links between Rome and Eastern Europe. Copper, asphalt, and silver were mined in parts of the region, and Illyrian wine, oil, cheese, and fish were exported to Italy. Since the semi-autonomous clansmen of the Illyrian highlands were hardy warriors, it was inevitable that the emperors should recruit them to serve with the Roman legions and even the Praetorian Guard. When in the 3rd century BCE, the empire began to be threatened by the barbarian peoples of Eastern and Central Europe, Illyricum became a principal military bulwark of Rome and its culture in the ancient world. Several of the most outstanding emperors of the late Roman Empire were of Illyrian origin, including Claudius II Gothicus, Aurelian, Diocletian, and Constantine the Great, most of whom were chosen by their own troops on the battlefield and later acclaimed by the Senate. In 395 the empire was finally divided, and Illyria east of the Drynus River, the Drina in the Central Balkans, became part of the Eastern Empire. Between the 3rd and the 5th century, it was devastated by the Visigoths and the Huns, who however left no lasting mark on Illyria. But the Slavs, who started their incursions into the Balkan Peninsula in the 6th century, had by the end of the 7th century settled throughout the Balkans, including the territories of ancient Illyria. Of the Illyrian language, there survive only 3 or 4 unambiguously identified lexical items and some personal names and place names. There are no full sentences or even phrases available for analysis. On the basis of the location of Illyria and the fact that Albanian is descended from one of the ancient, pre-Roman languages of the Balkans, there is a presumption among some that Albanian represents the direct linguistic descendant of Illyrian, an assumption that is vigorously defended in Albanian-speaking lands. Historical linguists specializing in the languages of the region are divided among those who accept the presumption that Albanian is descended from Illyrian, those who hold that it is descended from a close relative of Illyrian, and those who insist that the current state of evidence is inadequate for reaching a definitive conclusion. Illyrian language, Indo-European language spoken in pre-Roman times along the eastern coast of the Adriatic Sea and in southeastern Italy. The language of the Illyrian fragments found in Italy is usually called Mesopic or Mesepian. Some scholars believe the modern Albanian language QV to be descended from Illyrian. Antiquity, Illyrians, and Thracians. Archaeological evidence indicates that the Balkans were populated well before the Neolithic period, New Stone Age, about 10,000 years ago. At the dawn of recorded history, two Indo-European peoples dominated the area, the Illyrians to the west and the Thracians to the east of the great historical divide defined by the Morava and Vardar river valleys. The Thracians were advanced in metalworking and in horsemanship. They intermingled with the Greeks and gave them the Dionysian and Orphean cults, which later became so important in classical Greek literature. The Illyrians were more exclusive, their mountainous terrain keeping them separate from the Greeks and Thracians. Thracian society was tribal in structure, with little inclination toward political cohesion. In what was to become a persistent phenomenon in Balkan history, unity was brought about mostly by external pressure. The Persian invasions of the 6th and 5th centuries BCE brought the Thracian tribes together in the Odrysian kingdom, which fell under Macedonian influence in the 4th century BCE. The Illyrians, ethnically akin to the Thracians, originally inhabited a large area from the Istrian Peninsula to northern Greece and as far inland as the Morava River. During the 4th century BCE, they were pushed southward by Celtic invasions, and thereafter their territory did not extend much farther north than the Drin River. Illyrian society, like that of the Thracians, was organized around tribal groups who often fought wars with one another and with outsiders. Under the Celtic threat, they established a coherent political entity, but this too was destroyed by Macedonia. Thereafter, the Illyrians were known mainly as pirates, who disturbed the trade of many Greek settlements on the Adriatic coast. The Romans were also affected and took police action, annexing much of Illyrian territory in the early 3rd century BCE. An Illyrian kingdom based in modern-day Shkodër, Albania, remained an important factor until its liquidation by Roman armies in 168 BCE. In the Roman Empire, the Romans were different from other major conquerors of the Balkans in that they first arrived in the west. Later attacks were launched from the southeast as well, so that by the 1st century CE the entire peninsula was under Roman control. At the height of Roman power, the Balkan peoples were the most united of any time in their history, with a common legal system, a single ultimate arbiter of political power, and absolute military security. In addition, a vibrant commerce was conducted along the Via Egnatia, a great east-west land route that led from Dyrrhachium, modern Durrës, Albania, through Macedonia, to Thessalonica, modern Thessaloniki, Greece, and on to Thrace. The northwestern part of the peninsula, including Dalmatia along the Adriatic coast, as well as Pannonia around the Danube and Sava rivers, became the province of Illyricum. What is now eastern Serbia was incorporated into Moesia, which reached farther eastward between the Balkan Mountains and the Danube, all the way to the Black Sea. The southeastern part of the peninsula was ruled as Thrace, and the southern part was brought into Macedonia. The Romans largely regarded the Danube River as their northern frontier, but in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, their authority was extended northward into Dacia, in what is now western Romania. Dacia had been the home of a people closely related to the Thracians. The Dacians had suffered invasion by a number of peoples, including the Scythians, a mysterious people probably of Iranian origin who were absorbed into the resident population. In the 3rd century BCE, they managed to contain Macedonian pressure from the south, but in later years, they were much less able to fend off Celtic invaders from the northwest. By the 1st century CE, a substantial Dacian state extended as far west as Moravia and threatened Roman command of the Danube in the Balkans. The extension of the Dacian state and Dacian raids across the river into Moesia prompted the Emperor Trajan in the 1st decade of the 2nd century to march into Dacia, obliterate the Dacian state and Dacian society, and establish a Roman colony that lasted until barbarian incursions forced a withdrawal back across the Danube, beginning in 271. Thanks for watching.